Hi and greeting to Dr. Kavita and fellow friends. My name is Fatia Dinabete Edifaret. Together with my teammates, we'll be presenting our finding of research study. Our research is about palynology and mycology as biological evidence. Criminal cases are studied from multiple perspectives in order to connect a suspect to a criminal crime. In this research case, a guy went missing near the coast of Argentina. Family members of the victim identified a potential suspect and the local police carried out investigation. Palynological and mycological approach was contributed to this study. Palynomorph and fungi spore provide useful trace evidence because of their small size and ability to survive on object and crime scene for a long period of time. After 25 days, the victim was discovered 35 kilometers from the location of the suspect arrest, partially covered by sand. Comparative samples were taken from the crime site as well as the suspect residence and belongings. The palynological association obtained from the crime scene and the defendant belongings were dominated by diatom and arbitrage and a high CFU number of bipolary cyanodotes, allowing the defendant clothing to be linked to the location of corpse discovery. The fungi biota in the soil from the defendant home was typical of prairie area, which was distinct from the soil at the crime scene, and the soil had a totally continental composition. The important points for this research are: first, microbiological traces are powerful forensic evidence. Second, fungi and palynomorphs can link the defendant to the crime scene. Third, mycology and palynology provide postmortem data. Other than that, forensic palynology help identify the sample from the suspect crime scene. Lastly, forensic mycology help determine early, burial, and primary decomposition. So, do you know what is palynology forensic? Forensic palynology is the discipline that studies the pores and pollen grain obtained at crime scene to provide evidence of the link between the defendant and the location of the corpse. Then, what about forensic mycology? Forensic mycology analyzes the fungal biota at the crime scene, allowing us to relate the scene at the defendant and its change in composition and richness during corpse decomposition, indicating the decomposition pace and estimate burial time. Our research is focused on how palynology and forensic mycology can be used as tools to establish a connection between the defendant and the scene of the crime. Significant study of our research are: mycology and palynology stand out as auxiliary sciences to provide data to the postmortem interval. Besides, forensic palynology is useful to define the sample origin obtained from the suspect belonging of crime. Other than that, forensic mycology is relevant to determine early burial time and a primary decomposition stage. The objectives of this research are to establish the link between the defendant and the crime scene using palynology and forensic mycology as tools that provide evidence for case resolution, and to investigate the biological microtraces in sandy soil and evident marine influence where the body was discovered.
Next, I will present the materials and methods and conclusions. Materials: garden soil sample was taken from the defendant's home and belongings including stockings, jeans, underwear, footwear, and pedals from the seized vehicle also were collected. Besides that, the soil that partially covered the corpse, the surface soil beneath and in contact with the corpse, and the surface soil 50 centimeters away from the corpse were also obtained from the crime scene for palynology and mycology studies. Palynomorphs were collected based on the microtraces that stuck or contained on the samples of different materials of the seized belongings. For the methods, firstly, the samples were acquired by scraping the surfaces of the seized belongings with a scalpel, and the collected materials were placed in a petri dish. Then, each of the defendant's belongings was placed individually in a beaker with the distilled water for 24 hours to separate the palynomorphs from the items, while soil samples were processed and placed in an aqueous solution before centrifuge. For the organic material with palynomorphs obtained from each sample, filtration and count technique was applied according to Leverot's et al. 1978. After that, the palynological residue was subject to acetylysis according to Edman. The pollen grains and microplankton were obtained by physical chemical extraction techniques. For each palynological preparation, the pollen grains and marine palynomorphs were quantified, observed with microscopes, and ready for identification. The species then were photographed using light microscopy for the illustration. The mycological analysis from the footwear and vehicle pedals was performed using zero dilution technique and soil washing. For zero dilution, 100 microliter of dilution were planted on each culture medium, namely potato dextrose agar (PDA) and malt yeast agar (MYA) in AAK. For soil washing, soil particles were washed 10 times with sterilized distilled water, vortex, and spinetons were discarded, and the soil particles were allowed to dry. Once they dried, 50 soil particles from each soil samples were selected to inhibit natural growth. Morphological structures were observed under light microscopy. The species were identified and molecular identification was performed to confirm the morphological identification of the most representative species that link the crime scene with the defendant.
Next, I will explain the result that the author got from this research. For comparison evidence, the sample from crime scene soil will be compared with defendant belonging and defendant garden. Sample collected from the soil that partially cover the corpse at the crime scene show palynological association composed of mainly of marine atom, which is 75%, acanthomophetae 3%, and pollen grain 22%. This is the example species that exist in marine atoms and species in pollen grain. For defendants, sample collected from defendants' belongings such as jeans, stocking, underwear, footwear, and vehicles pedals show a similar palynological association with the crime scene soil sample. While for defendant garden, the palynological association from the soil sample of the defendant gardens shows the presence of stipa species 32%, center species 28%, and lastly, Venus species, which consists of 40%. Table 2 shows relative frequency calculated of marines, diatoms, and aggregate, and continental elements such as polygrain estimated for each sample analyzed. The sample taken from the defendant's clothes and vehicle and soil sample from crime scenes. So, VC indicated a very common to occur with frequency more than 45%. F, frequent to occur with frequency between 16 and 44%. R indicated rare, frequency between 3 to 5%. S, sporadic to occur with frequency less than 3%. And lastly, A indicated for absent. Based on this table, there are species that present categorized into very common to occur in sample footwear and pedal. At the footwear also we can see the species under VC matches with the crime scene soil, which is Nyxia clausi, Nyxia exilis, and Nyxia escularis. And also, most of the species that present in the footwear, when compared to the crime scene soil, share similar palynological association. Table 3 shows the average and standard deviation of the species identified from soil sample using the serial evaluation technique in PDA and MYA culture media. Soil sample from the defendant's footwear analyzed by serial dilution 1 to 100 show an average CFE number of B. cyanodontis and P. glabrum with PDA and MYA respectively. The value is shown as above. While the sample from the vehicle pedals show an average CFE number for B. cyanodontis, P. glabrum, and Cuvularia species. For Cuvularia species, the value of MOA is not found. Fungal quantification performed using the 1 to 100 dilution showed that Bipolaris cyanodontis had the highest CFE number from the sample under the corpse, PDA, and MYA, and from control samples. The CFU of each fungus species are shown in Table 3. Table 4 shows relative frequency expressed as a percentage of each fungal species in PDA and MYA culture media. The soil washing technique showed that B. cyanodontis shoemaker was dominant in the sample collected under the corpse, 60% frequency in both PDA and MYA culture media, while in the control samples, it showed 36% and 28% frequency in PDA and MYA respectively. The species with the highest frequency in soil sample taken from the defendant's home were Aspergillus terreus, Cyclados poreadis, and Penicillium purpurascens. Relative frequency expressed of each fungus species in PDA and MYA was stated in the slide above, and other species also isolated. whose relative frequency in each country medium is shown in Table 4.
Next, I will be presenting the discussion part. The defendant's belongings were seized 72 hours after the crime at his residence 35 km from the coast. Sample from the defendant's footwear sole and car pedal matched those from the crime scenes, but not from his garden soil. The soil sample from the defendant's house did not have any marine polymorph such as diatom and acritage. Instead, it had only continental element like stipapinus and cedrus, as has been discussed in the result. It showed that if the defendant is not guilty, the result of his belonging must show high percent of continental element instead of marine polymorph. Polymorph from the crime scene and the seized defendant's belonging had a marine composition highlighting the coastline influence. The presence of polymorph like diatoms and acritage of acanthomorphite, which are typical of high-energy environment close to the coast, put the crime scene in an infralittoral marine area, where marine elements are more common than continental pollen grain. In addition, soil from footwear sole, car pedals, and the crime scene exhibited high bipolary cynodontis (CFU) count and low penicillium glabrium CFU levels. The high CFU level of bipolary cynodontis in this sample and they are absent in the defendant's garden soil sample are outstanding data in the analysis. As a result, the discovery of bipolary cynodontis, marine diatoms, and acritage in the soil collected from the defendant's shoes, clothing, and car pedal was a very helpful microtrace that demonstrates the connections between the sample and the crime scene and show an obvious exchange of material between the analyzed surface. So, why does palynology study help forensic investigator to resolve a crime case? First and foremost, pollens are spread according to its small size and it attached to many objects, such as surface, skin, and fold of clothes. And secondly, the structure of pollens and spore is extremely resistant to any external environment such as heat, cold, washing, smudging, and degradation. Thus, pollen grain may remain preserved for many years. Meanwhile, the advantage of mycology study in forensic science is fungal spores are produced in large number and spread quickly through the air. Spore can often be found on clothes, hair, or skin of a person who has been infected. Secondly, fungal spores are invisible to the naked eye, and different types, whether single or in combinations, can be seen under microscope and indicate the specific area which the crime occurred. Fungal spores also can act as a fingerprint. The limitation is limited number of specialists.
In conclusion, the results obtained from the study was considered as additional evidence that aided to the police investigation of this case. It has been proved mycology and, most importantly, palynology have assisted in identifying the biological microtraces in the environment of sandy soil and marine elements where the corpse was found. The palynological evidence, specifically the cynodontis, contributed to identifying where the corpse decomposition took place and forming the link between the crime scene and the defendant. In the past few years, researchers have demonstrated the value of mycology and palynology as forensic techniques in field studies and actual cases. They did this by linking the defendant to the crime site or other items discovered within it. According to research conducted worldwide, specific fungal groups serve as useful markers for graves or hidden burials, and each specific site is characterized by its palynological composition. The palynological and fungal material discovered in the seized items prove their relation with the area of this discovery. For recommendations, we hope that forensic palynology could be one of the important forensic fields that has been applied widely in homicide cases, especially in Malaysia, as to aid in police investigation. We also hope that many scientific studies will implement forensic palynology as a successful method in providing crucial evidence for that specific case to provide a reliable source of information for research in the future. In addition, the current methods and techniques in forensic palynology are expected to be improved and validated.